On this episode of Edge of the Web.
If my theory is right and they're cross-checking things against a database that they trust, well, now they've got information from those big sites to trust. So, I mean, there's certainly problems because new stuff happens all the time.
All the time.
How is Google going to determine what is trustworthy and not? So I think the point here is that they're going to err on the side of caution. Yeah. And then I think over the next little while, we'll see that they get better.
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. You're listening and watching Edge of the Web. Winners of Best Podcast from the Content Marketing Institute for 2017. Hear and see more at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
So we want to thank Ahrefs returning as a sponsor of The Edge. Ahrefs, if you haven't come across that before, makes competitive analysis easy. Their tools show you how your competitors are getting traffic from Google and why. You can see the pages, the content that send them most of the search traffic, and then find out the exact words they're ranking for and which backlinks are actually helping them rank. Talking about backlinks, this is the place to go. So if you haven't come across Ahrefs before, we highly recommend that tool set from The Edge. You can check out a lot of things in there. They have a keyword explorer tool. One of our favorites is the new backlinks factor. They're continually churning up daily new links that keeps us very focused and vigilant on our own backlink profiles for our clients. So check them all out over at ahrefs.com. That's ahrefs.com, and start a free trial today. You'll swim in great data and you'll love the tool. It will be a tool for your shop just as it is for ours. So check out all that information. Be sure to join the newsletter. Text the word EDGE to the number 22828, the word Edge Talk, and you can join us right there. We're cranking out some good information on a regular basis of who we've talked to in the show, the articles of news, as well as some of the insights that we had from that interview, as well as who we're going to be talking to in the future. So join the Edge newsletters free of charge. We won't use your email for anything else but sending over the digital nuggets of gold. All right, so follow all the featured trending topics over at edgeofthewebradio.com. But for now, let's put a pause to that and deep dive with this week's featured guest.
Now it's time for Edge of the Web featured interview with Marie Haynes, owner of Marie Haynes Consulting.
Well, it kind of seems like we've already had the interview, at least a portion of it. But let's introduce Marie because we didn't get a chance to at the beginning of the hour here. She's a regular speaker at conferences like PubCom and SMX. She's a contributor to Search Engine Roundtable, Search Engine Watch, Search Engine Land, Moz, the SEM Post, all the places that you got to pay attention to this type of news. She's also the owner of her own growing agency called Marie Haynes Consulting. She's also completely obsessed with understanding Google algorithms. So we had to come back around as soon as we saw even more activity on the Google Core update. So Marie, there's your official introduction.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
We've already done the whole interview.
Oh, we've got more. So briefly, Marie, can you give us, our listeners, your backstory? Tell us how you got into SEO, because you're one of the clarion callers right now in this industry. So give us a snapshot briefly.
It still kind of amazes me how people will follow what me and what my company are saying about SEO. I was a veterinarian for years, and in between appointments, I would be trying to figure out how to get my friends and my own websites ranking better, and just sort of stumbled into this SEO thing. And then in 2012, when Google came out with their Penguin algorithm and nobody understood it, I happened to be on bed rest at the time, and I was just trying to figure out what Penguin was doing, and taking part in SEO forums. And then people were saying, hey, can I pay you to consult with me? And I would say, no, I'm a vet, not a marketer. But slowly started doing a little bit of consulting. And then over the years, every time Google has said something about an algorithm update, something that could be quality in terms of links or on-page signals, I've been taking notes on it. Just a couple of years ago, hired a few people to help me do this. And now we're a team of 8 and growing, where we basically analyze analyze websites for quality issues. And a great number of clients that we work with see nice improvements, although not everybody. And we have a great time doing what we do. We love trying to improve quality.
It's absolutely clear that you do, and those are penguins behind you on the screen, are they not?
They are, yeah.
She's taking her job seriously here, folks.
Oh yeah, you can't see the rest of the office. We've got pandas, we've got all sorts of stuff going on.
Couple hummingbirds, a picture of Florida. Okay, all right. We've been certainly paying attention to what you're sending out into the SEO conversation on social as well as content, and we certainly want to highly recommend. I'll give a gratuitous plug for you. Your newsletter is fantastic. I've never seen a newsletter like this before. That's unpacking so many key points in the SEO industry before. So you certainly want to join the Edge newsletter, but if you really want to see something that is just tantamount good from a content standpoint, go join the newsletter over at Marie Haynes Consulting. All right, so and that was an unpaid commercial right there, by the way.
Thank you. That's very good.
No problem. So let's talk about these core updates. And for listeners that are not aware of core updates and even what the Google algorithm changes are doing regularly, especially digital marketers that aren't in SEO, can you give a very light background into why Google changes this algorithm regularly?
Mm-hmm. So Google's goal, if you want to be cynical, Google's goal is to make money for Google. And then people would argue, they made these algorithm updates in order to push more people to buy ads. I don't think that's it. I think that the reason why Google has a monopoly on search, we know very few people use other search engines. People do, but it's mostly Google, is because they provide the most relevant results. And their goal is to continue to provide the most relevant results. And so they're continually tweaking their algorithms so that when I type in a search query, I don't have to go to page 6 to find the answer that I want. Right. I can trust that it's going to be one of those top results. And so every time we see an update from Google, it's something has been changed in their algorithms, or their assessment of your site has changed. And so when we see, we used to have Panda updates and Penguin updates, and then a few years ago, Google said, "Look, we're going to call these core quality updates, and as much as we can, we're going to tell you when we do one of these." And Danny Sullivan from Google does occasionally tweet through the Google Search Liaison account saying, "Yes, we're pushing out an update," or "We have pushed out an update," and they'll tell us some things that it has to do with. Although for the last 2+ years, we really feel like pretty much every update has to do with something that is discussed in the document called Google's Quality Raters Guidelines. And so that's why we sort of focus on quality from that book. But primarily what we're looking at here is Google makes changes all the time. Yep. They make changes every day. Some of those changes are more significant. So I think what happened over the last weekend was a minor change to the algorithm. And then they make very major changes like June 3rd, March 12th this year was another one where that affects a larger number of sites. And that's where usually they figured out how to thoroughly assess something else. And usually it's an element of trust. So what we're seeing with medical sites lately is that they're trying to find out, are the sites that we're ranking for medical queries potentially going to harm anybody, or are they sites that we can really trust? So hopefully that sort of explains it. It can be hard to understand what's happening when you're on the wrong side of an algorithm update.
Oh, yeah.
It happens.
It does, and people are panic-stricken whenever something comes through because they're holding fast to and they're watching their Google Search Console if they're there. But a lot of people, a lot of business owners, don't even get that particular vantage point. They just know that everything's just disappeared. So they need that kind of information spelled out to them. These things are changing regularly, and Google's really evaluating how valuable you are in your own ecosystem online. Speaking about medical sites, because that has been the biggest buzz. Now, we knew about the August change, the Your Money, Your Life, algorithm change that rolled out last August. But it's even more pressing. We're hearing you and Glenn Gabe are going back and forth regularly about these medical sites and drops that have been seen. Lily Ray jumped in there and was giving the evaluation of the top 15 alternative medical sites that have taken a hit. Can you give some perspective of what those sites were? And again, you're not paid to study those sites, but we're all in it together to get a sense of how deep those cuts are, right?
So something that we're seeing a lot of, especially since June 3rd of this year, is medical sites that talk on alternative subjects. So, alternative and complementary medicine are seeing a lot of drops. And so, for example, and it's not just medical, it can be nutrition as well. So sites that talk about a particular type of diet, or sites that talk about supplements, that's a big one. And what we're seeing is in almost every situation, the sites that are winning these SERPs are the giants. They're Mayo Clinic, they're Healthline, WebMD. And if you're doing information, if you're trying to do a search on some alternative treatment, let's say you want a holistic treatment for a health condition that you have, right, you're likely going to see one of these giants first before you see a site that's dedicated to that medical issue.
Sure.
And one of the things that we're seeing is that, let's say there's a new diet out there that, example diet that everybody seems to want to follow. And if I do a search for, does example diet work? Or is example diet good? What I will find is one of a few things. One could be that I see a featured snippet from maybe Healthline that says there are no studies that prove that example diet works. That's not good. If I'm seeing that and my whole website is talking about example diet,
right?
You see what I'm saying? Or they might say, well, the research is still kind of out there, and maybe there's been a study that shows that this herb could help with this, and but it's kind of vague. Those still, Google doesn't want to trust those at this point. And then the last thing that we see is, okay, if Healthline and WebMD are saying, yes, there's plenty of studies that show that this works, right, and it's not even just studies, just if the medical community says, yes, we're a big fan of example diet, then you're probably seen as okay. So our theory, and we're still unpacking this theory right now. I have an article that'll be coming out hopefully this week, maybe next, so you get a sneak preview on this.
That's great.
Is that Google can algorithmically determine that, all right, there's information on your website, and then they have a knowledge base, right, of sites that they trust, especially for medical facts. They have a huge knowledge base of this stuff. And so they can very easily use natural language processing to say, the point of your page is to say that this works, and our knowledge base that we trust doesn't support that. Now, if a huge component of your site falls into that category, then you probably will have trouble ranking for a YMYL query. So what we're trying to do now is come up with ways that we can override this. But I think if your goal is to rank number one and outbeat WebMD and sites like that for short tail queries, it's going to be really challenging unless Google does some more tweaks. And I think that'll come in the weeks and months to come, that Google will get more nuanced at determining, okay, this part of this website is good.
Right.
And this part contains like maybe stuff that could be harmful to people, and only showing the parts that they trust. But right now it seems to be a site-wide thing that if Google is lacking trust in your medical site, then, and that's just one of the possible reasons that maybe you're not in line with scientific consensus, then it's going to be tricky to rank for YMYL queries. So,
well, that gives us a great background and great context here. I have to ask you one question here in this respect. Let me see if I can pony this thing up. The concept of evaluation and authority, right? We already know that's where EAT lives, and that's where so many sites are subject to now even more scrutiny when it's medical and it's a benefit, a lifestyle benefit type of goal here. Then it's even under more scrutiny. But what about the timeline of trending topics that are just entering the marketplace that don't have those because there's just no data there? What you're saying is that there's even a larger step to step up on to be able to get that level of value or that level of endorsement. You're not even looking for endorsements yet. Literally, you're just trying to get some sort of recognition that this is an alternative method of what have you. They're making it's almost like you're not big enough to ride the ride now because you have this data, but you don't have it evaluated by these large organizations. So it could be completely legitimate. But you're going to have to wait even a longer period of time to be able to get some sort of recognition online. Is that what we're possibly seeing here?
Possibly. I think it's super complicated because, I mean, of course, new treatments and supplements and whatnot are coming out every day.
Sure.
I mean, I would imagine every day there's probably several new weight loss supplements that are developed. And so let's say one of those, like, let's say in this month, there's like, I don't know, 400 new weight loss supplements that are being produced and out there online for people to read about. And let's say that one of those is really, really good for weight loss. Then maybe that page should rank well. But I think what Google's algorithms are doing is saying, well, you've got 400 pages talking about these sketchy, like, I don't know if they're going to work products. And by the way, you have an affiliate link to sell them, or you a guide, or like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So how are they going to pick out that one page on your site is trustworthy and the other 399 pages that are selling products are not? So I think they have in their algorithms, they have a list of trusted sites. They can say if Healthline, WebMD, even Wikipedia, if it's in there, we can trust it. If it's not, they're probably going to err on the side of caution. So I think I think we could take it down to a tinier level and say, like, if I was the company that made this weight loss product, maybe eventually as doctors start to recognize it's working, as medical communities start to back it up, and as more of the experts online consider this to be a good thing across, not just that one website, then that topic is seen as one that's trustworthy, and you're not going to be seen as lacking trust if you write about it. So, I think it's all on a very large scale right now that, like, unless Google can say 100%, we really, really, maybe not 100%, but unless they can really, really trust your site and you have brand authority, then it's going to be really tricky to write on topics that are not accepted as consensus. And that's really tough when new things come out. So I think I don't know, this is one of the things that we're working on is how can a brand present this new information without sounding like you're trying to scam people? And I think if we can cure that, if we can solve that, then we can help some of these sites. Because not all of the medical sites that dropped were bad. I think a lot of them were. But we've reviewed some sites that are quite good that have seen drops as well. Any
of those that you could possibly mention during this broadcast?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, just because of our confidentiality.
Sure. Oh, no, that's fine. But I mean, there are legitimate websites out there that are getting. So there's some refinement, obviously, that Google needs to do in this space. I just keep on seeing in my mind's eye here, a Google trend chart to be able to see as queries are building about a particular type of diet. All of a sudden, now you have a little bit more viability in the ranking space because people are looking for it more. They're coming around and checking these large organizations to see if that particular supplement is actually mentioned. So it's almost this additionally an organic build of interest that's probably going to give value to some of those sites. Would you say?
Well, yeah, and I think it grows organically. I mean, if there was some type of a new diet, a new supplement, or a new treatment that comes out, and all of a sudden it's growing in Google Trends because there's huge interest in it, well, then that's going to be covered by the health giants eventually.
Right, exactly.
And then Google can, if my theory is right, and they're cross-checking things against a database that they trust. Well, now they've got information from those big sites to trust. So, yeah, I mean, there's certainly problems because new stuff happens all the time.
All the time.
How is Google going to determine what is trustworthy and not? So I think the point here is that they're going to err on the side of caution. Yeah. And then I think over the next little while, we'll see that they get better. Here's an example for you. This wasn't a client of ours, but you probably saw stuff on Twitter about selfhacked.com. And We looked into that a little bit. Again, they're not clients of ours, but this is a site that talks about all the medical science behind different supplements.
Okay.
And I think that the vast majority of what we looked at when we were sort of briefly looking at this site was really good stuff. But then they had the odd post about like, oh, here's the supplement, and there's not a lot of evidence to support it, but it's possible that it could fix all of these medical conditions. And by the way, here's our guide that tells you more. And I'm not saying, that this is the main problem. I think Self-Hacked, from what I can see, looks like a very good website. But if you can see, with my theory here that Google is saying, well, there's some stuff on there that we're not sure if it's safe for users. So to err on the side of caution, we don't want them to rank well for YMYL queries where people are trying to fix their health or spend their money. It's an interesting area.
I'm tracking with you, and I'll throw one more thing into the mix here, is that is Google actually looking at the intention of those sites, not just the content, not just the references, but what you just explained there was literally the intention was to get that download going, that additional guide. It wasn't for the value of the content that it's actually showing, because it's kind of thin content, all things considered. But on that page was something that wasn't really what the user was looking for, but it just happens to be right in the middle of the page to be able to download. So, are they actually possibly looking at the intention of these medical page, the content that are out there?
I think that they are.
Yeah.
Again, if we look at the quality raters guidelines, which don't tell us exactly how the algorithms are working, but they tell us how they teach humans to test if the algorithms are working.
Right.
And the quality raters, one of the first things they're told to do is to determine what the purpose of a page is. And, I think there's many ways Google could do that. We put title tags on our pages to say what the purpose is. We put headers on the pages. I think Google can use natural language processing to say, oh, this page is saying that this supplement is good for weight loss. And it's many places in the guidelines that the raters are told the very first thing you need to do is determine what is the purpose of this page. And they talk about a page having a beneficial purpose.
Oh, you beat me to it.
Words from you. So if it's, and I don't know how Google labels that. When we have our thoughts, right? So maybe the purpose of the page is to sell a product. And if that's the case, then you're going to be held to a higher standard of trust.
Right.
And what we're seeing is a lot of the pages that are ranking for supplements and medical things that you can buy are pages that don't sell products. Now, I'm not saying that all affiliate sites are, low quality, because there's many good affiliate sites out there. But I think if you've got an article on something and you're selling the product, and WebMD has an article on it and they're not selling the product, Google is going to trust WebMD's information more than your website, probably.
Absolutely. And that was a big change that came through. And since we had talked, July 25th, I think, was a Google Quality Raters Guideline update. And that beneficial purpose concept was squarely in part of the updates that are rolling through. So it's not only the type of content that you're rolling through, and there is, for our listeners who haven't checked out the Quality Raters Guideline, there is a huge checklist of things to go through to be able to see how Google's actually recommending their own graders review content online that is not only authoritative but useful. And it's about that usable and utilitarian concept. Do you have shipping methods online? Do you have return policies? These sundry other pieces that just go to good quality communication to the website's users, right? Now you're in the space where it's not only that content, it's also the intention of the pages that you have here. You just can't build pages for Google. You've got to build the pages for Google's consumers. And that's the big change in SEO now. It's really about intent, and it's about that trust factor that you speak so well about. Where we've evolved into this space is that Google's sniffing out the bait and switch tactics, Google's sniffing out right there on the page what you're really doing with this content. That's a big evolution, isn't it, Marie?
It is. And the thing that's frustrating is that it's not as obvious as it was in the past. Like, it's not like Google is just demoting sites that we'd all recognize as scam sites. A lot of these sites that dropped with June 3rd, they're, like I said, they're very good sites. And a big component of their traffic and their pages are things that I would totally trust. So, it would be easier to understand if we were like, okay, Google's attacking these sites that nobody would want to see in the search results. And it is a little bit frightening to me that, it seems like Google is almost controlling what's truth, if that, in some sense. But I also trust that there's a system here, and they're working on it. And I think that one day we'll look back at interviews like this and go, man, we didn't know very much about what we're doing, but it'll become clear. So yeah, I mean, it's very, very complicated. I wish I could get inside of, meetings at Google and just have just a little bit more information about what they're trying to do here. But yeah, it's a challenge for sure.
You tread lightly whenever we start looking at Google being the purveyors of trust. They take their job very, very seriously because, I mean, ultimately it's the consumers that are either going to believe or not what they're bringing to the equation. But boy, that's a really delicate place for them to be of kind of revealing the sites that they truly do endorse, for lack of a better description. We've seen it over the decades. I mean, this is how they've evolved our content, and we as consumers love how they've developed their content and make it more and more useful for any transaction or any inquiry. But boy, that's the one step. It can go too far that all of a sudden content that is completely legitimate doesn't show up, right?
You just made me realize something pretty profound here. Maybe it won't be profound for everybody else, but for me it is. The reason why I first created a website was when I was a veterinarian and I was sick and tired of people coming to me with stuff they found on the internet. So people saying like, hey, my dog has fleas and I read on Yahoo Answers, I just need to give him garlic. And it turns out that garlic is toxic to a dog's red blood cells. And so, people were finding this information on the web. Right. And so I got into SEO and web design and all this stuff because there was misinformation on the web in terms of medical information. And now, but that was, 10 even longer years ago now. And now Google, I imagine if Google was your company. I mean, there's a lot of cool things you could imagine about that.
Okay, we're just going to stop right here and just kind of float into the ether. Yeah, keep on going.
Imagine that people were using your website consistently to get information that could harm them.
Exactly.
Or to be scammed. No wonder Google wants to change things, right?
Yep.
And I mean, sure, there's money involved. Yes, they want to make more money. But I do think that there's a part of Google that, like a big part of Google that wants to help people.
Yep.
Maybe I'm naive to think that. But I do think that they're trying really hard. And I know that that's not consoling if you have been hit by Google. But I think a lot of us are looking at Google as like the enemy that, where they're constantly demoting our website when instead we should be looking at it like, I don't know, I'm rambling here, but
no,
I think you see my point that I came into SEO because there was very bad veterinary medical information that was being surfaced on Google searches. And that has changed. A lot of that has changed now. So we have to roll with the times and figure out how I think a lot of sites that their business model is no longer going to work in this new age of Google.
No, you're absolutely right. If you're not bringing good information to the equation to help educate people and not dissuade them, not spin them, you got to look at your content and see if it's actually doing that. Take that quality raters guideline and scrutinize your content from stem to stern. And if you're not, if it smells of potential disingenuousness, right, then you've got to change your game because Google's onto it. They're understanding what you're really doing, and you could very well not be manipulating anything at all, but it may look like that, and you really have to look at your intention profile, for lack of a better description. So you have your link profile out there, does your site cross over that intention profile and demonstrate true want to help, right?
Yeah, and better yet, get other people to look at your website.
Sure.
Going back to that self-hacked website, there was a post on Hacker News about this. And it was interesting because the responses on Hacker News weren't all SEOs. I mean, there were people with technical knowledge, but and so a lot of these responses were people saying how much they didn't trust the site, even though there's good. I mean, there were a lot of responses of people saying, this is fantastic. I've gone to this website for years. But you had people, their first instinct at looking at the site, and I don't remember the exact comments, but they were things like, well, this looks scammy. I wouldn't trust this. You're selling this. And so it can help to have that's part of what we do in our reviews as sort of look like an unbiased third party to determine, like, would we buy a product from this website? And if you don't want to hire somebody like our company to do that, you can very easily get 10 people, pay them a little bit of money to just spend some time on your website and your competitors' websites and ask them the 23 questions about Panda, Amit Singhal's questions. Like, would you give your credit card to this site? Do you trust the information? Do you recognize this site as an authoritative brand? Things like that.
Right.
And I know that's kind of vague. It's not like as easy as, well, change your title tag to this. But that's what Google's going after. If you can get people to trust your website thoroughly, then Google really should as well.
Yeah, it's time to step up not only your content, but just how you present yourself to the online consumer. The consumers are savvy, and Google's catching up to it, and they're running ahead of these sites and saying, you know what? Improve your game, please, because we're not going to send that traffic to you. I think you're spot on, Marie, and we're going to be seeing this continued evolution into this. They're not a cop; they're literally almost a quality control that we're experiencing now.
Makes sense.
All right. Well, we could certainly do this for hours, but we want to be respectful of your time. Hey, every time we interview, we always ask our guests what really kind of bugs you right now in your industry. Now, we just had that conversation, but since the last 6 months, what has bugged you about this industry?
Gosh. Not a lot of things. I think, honestly, I think SEO is a really cool community, and for the most part. We had a thing recently where I'm sure you're aware of this blog post that Google published about EAT. And I loved it because it actually validated a lot of the stuff we were saying. And a lot of SEOs got upset because in the blog post, Google linked out to
Lily?
our site.
Yeah, your site.
Right?
Yeah.
And a number of other sites, right, that had good articles on EAT. And
everybody got sideways about it.
I know, right? And like, I don't want to bring up this whole discussion again because I just did bring up the whole discussion again, but you asked me what bugs me. So I tried as much as I could to stay out of that discussion. That's what bugs me is when we're complaining about each other.
Right.
I'm sure if they wrote a blog post about EAT and they didn't link to me after I've spent years of my life working on it, and they linked to other people, I would probably complain about that. But if they wrote a blog post about something else, about AdWords or ads, Google Ads now, which is something, we don't do as a service, and they linked out to a bunch of SEOs who had written really good topics on this,
right,
I would be fine with that. I would be thrilled for them. And so anyways, I think I would like to see less backbiting, and maybe backbiting is not the right word, because some of the people that had complaints about this were people I really trust and like, but more celebrating our successes and sharing freely. I would love, we share experiments and then people come out and say, oh, but it's not this and you don't know what you're talking about and blah, blah, blah. And then who wants to share an experiment anymore, right? So I think if I could change one thing about the community, it would just be to be less critical of each other and more just we're all trying to help our clients and well. So yeah.
No, I think you're right there. And I think one of the factors of that particular argument is that it was a rarity that Google ever listed out that many links to consulting firms in a blog post. That was that additional icing on the cake that kind of got everybody riled up. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. Is that we're in the sharing process. We need to be able to toss information back and forth and be able to understand what's happening in these waters regularly. All right. Conversely, what's exciting outside of EAT? I'm going to give those parameters. Outside of EAT, what's exciting in the industry in your eyes?
Exciting. Oh gosh,
I took EAT off the table.
I can't talk about EAT. Honestly, I think we're in a new age. Like when I know I'm sounding kind of philosophical when I'm saying years from now, we'll look back and go, oh, we were having this conversation about how search is changing. But I think this time period is one where those who did SEO up till just a few years ago, we're kind of in a golden age where if you were good at SEO, you could take like almost any business and make them money. And now things are changing where search engines, mostly Google, are getting better at determining what's an SEO trick and what's actually, I mean, links matter because they're recommendations, right? So I think that anybody who's good at helping sites rank in this day and age, like you have a lot of potential for you. I still see so many SEO companies that are using tactics that no longer work. And so those of you who are actually seeing some success and making your clients some more money, it's super exciting because I think there's a very small pool of businesses, companies, individuals that can truly get good results. So that excites me that there's so much opportunity to learn and do better if you're good at SEO now.
Very good. You're so chipper. You're always so chipper on this show. It's good. It's good to have the because there's a heck of a lot. I shouldn't say that there's a lot of negativity, but man, we've been beaten and our hulls have not been intact, at least the SEO community. There's been a lot of challenges in this space, and it's good to be able to have that type of positivity regularly. So we applaud you over here. Hey, we certainly want to recommend your newsletter like we did in the beginning of the show. Go over to courses.mariehaynes.com, search-news- you can use. Well, that's a long one. Come on, give me a short.
SEO. No, wait. You could go to mariehaynes.com/newsletter.
There we go. Boy.
Yeah, you're good.
You threw me through a loop there. Also, absolutely check out Marie's podcast, Search News, that you can use as well. It's a good, about 20 minutes, 20 or 30 minute podcast. And
it depends on how babbly I get, 20 to 40. Yeah.
I resemble that remark. But we certainly recommend that. So from another colleague out here, you're doing Fight the Good Fight. We really appreciate what you're doing, and you're separating the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, in this marketplace. Keep focusing on EAT and educating us about EAT, because all this SEOs that have been moving around titles and headlines. I mean, you got to get the game on. You got to build trust and authority for your clients, and that's a different marketing tactic right there. And you got to build those relationships, right?
Thank you. Those were very kind words.
No, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. All right. So track Marie at Twitter, Marie_Haynes. You're on Facebook. You're on LinkedIn. You're on all the places. So pay attention. And I didn't even ask you, what did you do for your Labor Day?
I played Fortnite. We were going to go on a big trip to the zoo and do like this big family weekend. And then we talked about it and we all said, you know what, let's just have a weekend where all we do is just play video games and just hang out.
Oh man.
Oh,
we lost her there. I was just going to say, it might be in time for you to think about starting up a Fortnite podcast. And let's see if we get Marie back here.
I lost you. I think my internet died.
Yep, just lost you. But Jacob was making a suggestion to make a Fortnite podcast there.
I think, I mean, that came up like
we've got
3 or 4 times a day.
My 11-year-old is really into TikTok, and this is going to get embarrassing, but she's trying to teach me Fortnite dances. And then she wants to create a TikTok of how embarrassing it is oh
my gosh. So I use that as a weapon to my kids. I mean, I cannot floss to save my life, but I'll do it in public.
I think a TikTok account.
Yeah.
I think a TikTok account dedicated to parents trying to do Fortnite dances would be huge.
There it is.
Well, listen, let me give you a preview because it's so bad. Watch.
Yep. See, we can all. My kid is going to kill. My kids are going to kill me. I'm going to play that over and over again for them. All right. Well, thank you so much, Marie. We really appreciate it. Hey, you got a speaking engagement coming up with Lily. You're both going to be on stage talking about EAT. October what?
I think it's on the 7th. It's at PubCon.
Cool.
Sometime around the 7th. I'm speaking at a couple of things there, but it's going to be good. And I'm also doing a link building workshop with Dick Jones and Ann Smarty for the masterclass for PubCon.
Oh, wow.
And also talking on quality raters guidelines with Jen Slegg at PubCon too. So if you're, and then if I can mention, my team is all going to be there. We're going to have a booth at PubCon this year. So if any of the listeners are going to PubCon and you want just a little overview of your site or your links or anything like that, we're going to have fun stuff at our booth. So,
That's great. That's great. Tell them the Edge sent you, and certainly go see Marie and her colleagues over there. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And like I said, keep fighting the good fight, Marie. We are learning so much as you plow through that. So appreciate it.
Thanks for having me again.
You're more than welcome.
Great.
Thanks for listening to Edge of the Web, as well as a special thank you to our colleagues over at Site Strategics, as well as our guest, of course, Marie Haynes. Check out all the must-see videos and much more over at edgeofthewebradio.com. Be sure to rate and review. That's how we do our own optimization on the podcast. So take a moment and be able to jump into iTunes or Google Play. Give us a review. Let us know how we're doing. That means the world to us over here. Also, make sure you check out our sponsor. Our live sponsor here today, ahrefs.com. You want to make sure you jump over and get a free trial of their software because it's stellar. From all of us over at edgeofthewebradio.com, we'll talk to you next week. Do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. Bye-bye.